very excited to have another really fantastic guest.
Thank you.
This is Dr. Ava Frick, and we're today going to be talking about Ayurvedic medicine for pets. My name is Carter Easler. I'm the Director of Education for CBD Dog Health. I'm creating in cannabis studies for veterinary practice at the College of Integrative Veterinary Therapies. And I read a lot, and I love this stuff, and we've got some really amazing guests here to talk about other complementary modalities and some really great information about holistic veterinary medicine. So while people are kind of coming into the room and getting in here, I would love to ask you, Dr. Frick, to kind of tell us about who you are and how you got to this point. What were the things that made Dr. Frick the renowned holistic vet that she
Thank
is
you.
today?
Well, I would say, as far as looking at, I grew up on a farm, and ever since I was 3, I knew I was going to be an animal doctor. This was my purpose. So
Yeah.
all along the way, if it ever looked like there would be something that would get in my way, like I'd skirt around that. It's like, I was very focused on that part. But, we all train traditional. And at some point, there are things that come into our lives that help us see something from the other side.
Right.
So my first incident would be playing soccer. I was on a women's soccer team about 1989, and I'm going down with the ball this way. Somebody comes and hits me this way. I go down and I can't get up. And so I'm hobbling and bent over, and the next morning it's the same thing. I can't get up. So I thought, I guess I got to go to the doctor. Well, fortunately, the doctor in the small town where I was a DO.
Okay. What's
And
DO?
a doctor of osteopathy.
Oh, okay.
So they train medically, but they also train from a chiropractic perspective.
Okay.
So that was the first time I'd ever been adjusted. So it's like I go in bent over and I come out, I'm upright. And it was like, that was a Jesus moment.
And fast.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm going, okay, this thing's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Could change my body. I'm thinking, as a kid, when I had a few horse accidents, I needed that back then because I might not be in as bad a shape as I was. So there's that moment. And then you go forward a few more years. I turned 40 and I have a baby now. I have a son. And so my perception on life and the importance and the value shifted.
Yeah.
So one day this dachshund comes in the clinic. Of course, the dachshund can't walk. And I look at the dachshund. I'm still doing traditional. And I go, okay, I can give you some drugs, but I can't fix your problem. So I go, okay, the light goes off. You need to go get chiropractic certified. So, and I was looking, do I want acupuncture? Do I want chiropractic? But I had this incident with chiropractic for myself. And the chiropractic training was in Illinois, which was over the border from St. Louis, which is where I was living. So it's like, okay, chiropractic. So that was 1997.
Okay.
So then that starts the shift from there. Immediately, I'm interested in physical therapy and all that you can do with that to help improve a body. Then I go looking for what else do they have on the human side that we could use for pain? Because in 1997, 98, Remedil was just coming out.
Okay. Yeah.
So other than that, we had prednisone and phenylbutazone. Wow. So Bute, Pred, and now this Remedil.
Okay.
And that's how we were helping pain. And that was it. Yeah, so I'm going to PT conferences and American Academy of Pain Management conferences looking, and this is when I found the microcurrent, alpha stim, microcurrent therapy.
Yep.
So I'm like, okay, electromedicine is the wave of the future. This is where, if you can work within the body's electrical fields and patterns, you can, we can improve some things. So they had a lot of research. So I really got into the alpha stim and working it with all different species, finding out what settings work best in different animals for which conditions. And I just start seeing one miracle after another miracle after another miracle.
Wow.
So 21 years later, I'm still with that company. And that's been one of my side jobs, and is helping to develop that in research and awareness on the website and all of that. So we have that whole thing going. And then about 5 years ago, one of my good clients had Bernese mountain dog. And Bernie was struggling to walk, and I suggested they get an MRI. So they go in to do all the preliminaries for the MRI, and they find a tumor around his heart, and they're going, well, we're going to have to do some other workup. Well, he was very into Ayurveda. This is how I got introduced to this philosophy of utilizing foods for health, and in finding which food works best for which body. So there are in Ayurveda what they call the tri-doshas, the three, so Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. And when anybody is conceived, you are given a certain percentage of each of those.
Sure.
And depending on which predominates in that body, so it equals 100%. So Bernie, being a Bernese Mountain Dog, was mostly a Kapha. So kaphas, while that is good for keeping your body lubricated and making things move, and kaphas are very loving and forgiving, and they're the best parents, and all these wonderful attributes, they also tend to hold on and retain.
Okay.
And so there are certain foods then that were optimal for him. So I used my kinesiology, and I met with them at their house one night, and they had all these different vegetables they shop for. So I'm scanning, I'm testing him with AK on which of those vegetables and foods were going to be best for him at that time. So we created this whole recipe then that helped Bernie through that. He never did get the MRI, but he lived like about another 6 years later. The cancer shrunk. He never went through chemo. He continued on as this happy, Bernese for, older than what most of them. He was like 15, which is very old for a Bernese Mountain Dog. Yeah. So he ended up with a good life there. Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us. I'm really excited to talk to you today. And to anybody out there, if you have questions for Dr. Frick here, please comment in. Tell us where you're from and what you're interested in learning about. Today we are talking about Ayurvedic medicine for pets. And I have so many questions for you.
Okay.
This is such an interesting subject. Hi, Tracy. We've got Tracy Marble there saying hello. Hello, everybody. So you talked briefly about kind of some of the principles of Ayurvedic medicine, but for somebody who has never heard of Ayurveda, can you kind of break it down for the every person?
Sure.
What's the idea?
So it's a philosophy. It's Indian, and it's their philosophy. Many factors put in. They look at in this wellness philosophy are the aspects of that food is medicine.
Yes.
And if you have the right foods, you don't need medicine. And that within the body are the doshas, the Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. And that blend of what we're given at birth is our Pikruti. And that within each of those are what are called the gunas that create these characteristics. So opposites, hot and cold, dry and moist. So you have the opposite polars. There's 20 of those gunas that make up those different traits. So a Vata person is that you look at body types, and the animals are the same. The Vata is going to be the long distance runner.
Yes. Okay.
You could picture that slender
you had a really
going.
Cool slide that you had in your presentation that looked like this.
Yes.
So we've got the Vata.
So there's traits. Yeah. So
the Pitta and the Kapha.
yeah. So it has the squirrel there for the Vata. Yeah. So they're like fast, energetic, up, moving. That kind. The Pitta is kind of like a fire pit. They're going to be more muscly. The example is the lion, but you would look at a person that is well built, not overweight, not a heavy lifter, but has good muscle tone. The dogs in this category would be like a pit bull dog, could be a Rottweiler dog, could be those type that are muscled. Even some like a bull terrier. Some of the terriers are going to be Pitta, and there's certain foods and characteristic traits of them. They're very much about their food. They're very driven, but part of that is they have to eat, otherwise their fire gets too high, and then they get angry and aggressive and those kinds of things. And then you have the Kapha, which in that slide is the bear, but also it's the ones with the rounded features. So you're going to have, so you could have like a pug could be a Kapha. And the beagles would be the Kaphas. They got the round eyes. The golden retrievers are the Kaphas, very loving and so within each of those body types are different personality traits, different characteristics that then make a difference on how you view life, how you function in life. Same with the animals. What diseases and problems you may incur. Like a Pitta, it can eat anything. Nothing bothers that body type. They can, they got that stomach of iron. But the Vatas, Yeah.
That's tall, skinny.
Yeah, slender.
Yeah.
Yeah. Stomach is not your forte.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Versus the kappas, they love to eat. They enjoy their food, and they get every bit of good out of that food. So they're liable to be the ones that will be overweight.
Wow.
Do have problems. They have to watch what they eat.
These are doshas,
they
right? These three
Yes.
are the three doshas.
That's right. The
Okay.
vata, the pitta, and the kapha are the doshas. And that's just a startup. So then you go into each of those. There's many, many layers and aspects that the Ayurveda principles look at and apply when determining what's skewed. So like vata is ether and air. So a kapha dog that was having gas is too much vata.
Right. Okay, so we're talking now about the elements, because within the kind of part of the makeup of each of the doshas
Yes.
is a combination of the 5 different elements.
So yes,
Right?
so the ether, the air, the water, the earth,
Okay.
and then the fire.
Okay.
And those are the 5 elements.
Okay.
Yes. And those 5, so the vata personality is ether and air, that vata dosha. The pitta is fire and water.
Okay.
And then the kapha is earth and water.
Okay. One question that I have is, I'm pretty familiar with the 4 of those elements, fire, water, earth, air. Those, because they come up in a lot of different systems. Can you describe a little bit more what ether is?
So the ethereal, that's that level of existence beyond. It's like the substance that spiritually you move within.
Okay.
Ethereal.
Okay. Same kind of base as ethereal.
Like a gas.
A gas. Okay. Okay. The space between.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. And so you're saying that each of the doshas are made up of a combination of all of those, or they specialize?
Those 2. Each of them has a couple that are their main. Yes.
Okay.
Those 2 is what they're made up with. But then within those would be the gunas, which are the opposites of traits. Okay. So rough, smooth.
Got it.
Hot, cold.
Okay.
And then those that then make up those 5 elements that then help to blend those broken down other percentages within that individual. Okay. In balancing. It's all about balancing.
Okay. I see. So what I'm trying to understand is, it's a complicated picture, right? But that speaks to the nuance of, that every individual is different.
So individual.
People may hear that, one is a vata, one is a pitta, but that you said that these make up percentages.
That's
of the
right.
whole, right.
Everybody is made up of the 3.
You can have dominant traits.
That's
but
right.
You're part of everything.
That's right. Yes. Okay. Yes. And what you want to do is be able to maintain that balance for that individual.
Okay.
Which, when it's balanced to what they are in those percentages, they are healthy. And when any of those then get out of balance for that individual, which makes their uniqueness, and it affects, and this is what Ayurveda looks at, is it's looking at your environment. How is your environment, even seasonally, even times of the day? Okay. Different factors are working, and different doshas are predominant.
Oh, okay.
So there's nothing that stays the same.
Change over time, or do you kind of?
Only you are what you are when you're born.
Yep.
Yes, well, when you are conceived, even before you're born, you're already that makeup. You change because you're out of balance.
I see.
Innately, you're always the same.
I see.
But it can shift. And then it's these shifts then that create the diseases or the upsets or from a mental state, as well as a physical state.
And the goal is to get back to balance.
There you go. It's always about getting there.
This is a theme we're running with today, it seems. Cool. So do you have a way of determining, when you're looking at a patient, are you able to just kind of look at them and say, okay, this dog or this cat or horse is vata dominant because is it species? Can you have a horse that is
like an Arabian? Arabian would be a vata type.
Okay.
That's going to have some of the other. It's going to have some pitta. It's going to have some kapha, but it's more of a vata type. Versus if you look at a warm blood, like a Clydesdale, that's going to be more of a kapha type.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
That makes sense.
So right. So you can look at them, and in my program on Tuesday morning, I actually have taken one breed, which is a Treeing Walker Coonhound, and I'm showing how even within that breed, that they're not all the same.
Mm.
They can be balanced. So within this, I will give examples of a vata. That's a very balanced vata. That I have a pittas, to have two pittas. I'll give examples of those. And a kapha, two kaphas, that within this breed, while you can think of a breed as being mainly, you can have variances. So what I didn't want is that everybody thinks, oh, it's a beagle, it's automatically a kapha.
Right.
Maybe not.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Very cool.
So I actually have a quiz
You
that
do?
people can go
Oh,
to
you
my
do?
website. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
And it's in the lectures, it's in the notes.
Okay.
So there's a little quiz that you can use that the parents then fill out, and that they can determine then from their traits and behaviors which dosha their dog is.
Okay. That's awesome. I would love to. What is your website so people can find
The
it?
easiest is going to be avafrick.com.
avafrick.com. Okay.
Go to there.
Great. So hear that, everybody?
Yeah.
avafrick.com, and you can do the quiz that will tell you what your dog's dosha makeup
Yeah, and they can
is.
use it in their clinic. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is in the notes. It's in the notes for the proceedings.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So
we'll
they can
post
use that and hand it out and have their clients fill it out. It's a fun little quiz.
Oh, great. Yep. So we've got avafrick.com. Somebody also asks. Great. I'm going to come back to these comments and questions at closer to the end. I have a question about, so say we figure out, we know what our pet is. How do you then start feeding and determining a diet based on each of those? What's my word?
The doshas.
Doshas. Thank you.
Yes. So there are recommended vegetables, fruits, meats that are more compatible with the dosha.
Right.
So and then there's some that like you wouldn't want to eat.
Okay.
So like from a vata perspective, because a vata tends to be dry, you don't want to do a lot of drying things. So cranberries are drying, dried fruits, anything that's wrinkled.
Wow.
It's already dry.
Okay.
You shouldn't eat. If you want to eat a plum or a prune, but don't eat a dried prune.
Right.
You got to have a lot of moisture with things.
Okay.
I don't know if I mentioned cranberries; they're bitter. You avoid the vinegar, those kinds of things. Anything that's going to dry you out more, those are not going to be on the top of your good list.
And
Also,
vata, you said, was air and ether, right?
Mhm.
So those are dry, and so
Yes.
you want to go for something that's the opposite.
That's right. You
because
want
we're
a
going for
moisture.
balance.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
I'm
I
getting
moved from the Midwest where it's humid
Yeah.
to Arizona where it's more dry. I'm a vata.
it. Yeah. Okay.
So I have to eat more cooked foods like salads that are there. You got to do a lot of digesting, and a vata individual, digestion's not their forte.
Okay.
You got to go with the cooked food.
Interesting.
Cooked oatmeal. Also, another one is like vatas are more able to tolerate like the starches and the carbohydrates, although not potatoes. But so oatmeal is a good thing.
Okay.
You get to the kaphas, and those individuals that get all the good out of all the food, they're the ones that you're not going to be supplementing or adding in. Those are the dogs that you would say, oh, you got to get the carbs out of their diet.
Right.
Whereas the vata
Okay.
could have some carbs
Okay.
because of how they function.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of like a greyhound.
That's a vata. Very
Is it
good.
vata? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
The deep chest, straight on the sides. They think about running.
Yeah.
Their body. Yes.
Okay.
That would be a very good example of a vata.
Okay, cool. I'm trying to just keep all the layers of this straight. So we've got doshas: vata, pitta, kapha.
Got it.
Then we've got the elements that make up each of them.
Yes. Very good.
Which is ether, air, fire, water, earth.
Yes.
Okay. And then you talked about the gunas. So these are like actions or.
Yeah, you could look at them that way. They're a further breakdown. There's 20 sets.
I'm not going to memorize all of those.
No, that's right. We won't worry about those. 20 sets that then add to the traits that make up those doshas.
And are those set, or are they flexible?
It's like you could have hot and you can have cold, but in between there's warm.
Okay.
Yeah. But they're looking at so if you're as a vata and you get too hot, or the weather's too hot, then that's going to be more drying.
Okay.
But vatas themselves don't like cold because of their circulation, how they are. So and then there's the wet and the dry. There's the smooth and the rough.
I see. Okay.
So you put all those traits together. Even like you can break down individual skin. Like, is it smooth? Is it rough? Is it textury? And that falls into all of those gunas. And then where are you at? To look at, again, another layer, which we won't go into, but it continues to break down, break down. It goes from environment to the organism to the system, all the way down to submolecular levels. When you look at all of the ways that Ayurveda examines the functioning layers and levels within that body.
I see. So it pervades everything. We're not just talking about food. We're not talking about medicine.
No.
We're talking about
movement of anything.
The way that you speak, the way that they run, the way that...
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Interesting.
How circulation moves through the body, how the muscles and tissue move.
Okay.
All of those. Yes. Everything
Truly
that
holistic.
Functions in the body. Yes.
This is the meaning of the word.
Yeah. From all avenues.
Wow.
For sure. Yep.
Cool. Very cool. And so, what if, say I have a Pitta dog, I'm just kind of considering, there are, I'm running out of types of meat that I would be able to feed them. I think of them as facultative carnivores. They need to mostly eat meat.
That's right.
So
raw diets.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. They can deal a little bit with carbs, but not as much as what the Vata would.
Oh, I see.
But you want that cooling food. You want all cooling foods.
Are there certain
for the Pitta, because they tend to be hot.
That are more cooling?
Sure. Yeah, like duck is a cooler food.
Okay.
Yeah. Certain fish can be cooling. Even pork is on the cooling end of foods. It's a little bit of a medium, but it's a little more cool. So there are different proteins that you can use, like you would avoid. The hot is lamb and venison.
Okay.
So that's definitely off the list for a Pitta in the summertime.
Okay. I see a lot of dogs that are very sensitive to chicken. Is that, what would that...
Well, that's another whole story.
Is that a totally different thing about
yes.
how we treat our animals in this country?
Yeah, how much chicken has been fed, chicken fed with too many carbohydrates. It's set up, you get a whole protein's not digested, it gets into the gut. Now it's absorbed as a protein, not an amino acid. Okay. Now that protein is an antigen, and now the body looks at it as foreign, and so it goes after it. So yeah, it's a little bit different story.
Okay, cool. Very cool.
So we can. So the reason about this is the Ayurveda, and why I wanted to do this series of programs is to give the doctors yet another tool to customize nutrition, to customize the feeding program from a seasonal perspective, a time of day perspective, related to the dosha type of that particular dog or cat, mostly is what we're talking about.
Right.
And even dogs mostly, because of their variability and the struggle that dog owners work through in trying to find the right diet. There isn't any one diet for every day, all the time, every year. The seasons change, you have to change with it.
Yes.
As their constitution is altered, then you work through the foods to help bring that constitution back to its stable tridosha.
Yeah. And what of I think a lot about hot cold. Hot cold feels like a really something that we talk a lot about in more like Western energetics kind of philosophy.
Yeah.
That there are cooling herbs and warming herbs like turmeric.
Right.
And while turmeric has anti-inflammatory properties, it if you're giving it to a hot,
that's right.
It could be pro-inflammatory for a certain.
Right. That's right, because it's going to heat them up too much.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Even though
so you're
it
going to
has
lose good
anti-inflammatory properties, are there?
You got it.
Are there cooling anti-inflammatory herbs? I imagine too.
Yeah. So there's going to be others. So we could look at frankincense.
Okay.
So boswellia, which
yeah.
isn't going to put the heat into the body,
okay.
but it would be anti-inflammatory.
Yeah.
So that would be a good Ayurvedic
That's perfect.
herb.
Our yeast tincture, the yeast tincture has turmeric and frankincense.
Oh, good. So you got a little bit of a balance there.
A little bit of both. Yeah.
Other warming herbs that are also anti-inflammatory would be like ginger.
Right. Okay.
So it's anti-inflammatory, but it's also going to be warming. So it works good for the Vata type, not so good for the Pitta type.
Okay. Wow.
So another way to make selections, once you figure out which dosha predominates in this individual, and then make selections based on that.
Are there any cases where an animal is completely balanced of all three? Can you have Sorry, everybody. We just had a little lag, but we are back. The internet here in this conference center pops in and out every once in a while, but we are back. What were we talking about? We're talking about, you were saying,
Yes, I was thinking.
and then we got so
Uh,
rudely interrupted.
Oh, you asked if it's feasible for a body to be a
Yes.
third, a third, a third.
Yes.
That could happen.
Yep.
But that doesn't mean it's better than any of the others.
Sure.
They
Sure.
just are what they are.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But the clever part is that you can figure out what percentages and then use that to your advantage in supporting that dog and helping them along.
Cool.
Or a cat or horse.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Hey everybody, we are back. Yes, if you have any questions, please go ahead and post them here. We've got one here. How would you go about helping a patient that was out of balance? It's a pretty...
So it would depend on what the signs were, what you would choose to do.
I see.
So the example I given before was a kapha that's having a lot of gas, so they have too much vata.
Okay.
So what you're going to do is look at to bring their kapha digest back, and so you're going to avoid the things that are going to create more vata.
Right.
So you would not feed the things that are very vata positive.
Okay.
And you're going to feed those things that are more kapha positive
Okay.
to help bring that back around.
Yep.
So it all depends on which area of the body and what's happening,
right?
How you would exactly approach it. But it will always be, I guess the correct answer will always be to balance them towards what their strongest dosha is.
Right. Right.
Based on what their signs. So
right.
Gas is that. So the other would be a kapha that has too much inflammation. They have too much pitta.
Okay.
So you're going to cool them down.
Yes.
You want to get the heat out of there.
Yes. Okay.
And then restim, because then they'll start burning up.
Right.
The heat is going to break down something instead of that moist lubrication that kapha is all about. They're going to start to get stiff and rigid.
Right.
So you might see things in their movement. They're not as fluid as they used to be.
Okay.
And they're stiffer than they used to be.
Okay.
Could be a sign that there's inflammation.
Yeah.
That has too much pitta.
Right. Yeah.
So it would be a situation where you'd be looking to get that heat out of there.
Right.
By avoiding pitta predominating items.
Yeah.
Trying to get in the kapha building items.
Do you have resources, or are there places where we can see kind of what foods are?
And that's posted in the proceedings.
It is?
Yes,
okay,
I have
fantastic.
those listed out there for everybody to have it printed out. You can have it handy, and you can hand it out to the clients and utilize it. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Broken down into which ones are going to assist and aid that.
Yeah. So we have then the ways that we can influence and kind of try to bring our pets and ourselves back to homeostasis, back to balance. We have food is a major one. It sounds like that's the big one. That's what goes into the body and makes the body.
There you go.
Right. Are there other kind of things that affect that as well? Because you're talking about like, is it movement? Are physical therapies kind of part of this philosophy?
Well, certainly as a body, so too much vata, you get too stiff, you need to have the motion. So having massages then would benefit that body to help move things through. The kapha has a lot of good circulation, lubrication, so they're not going to tend to have the need for that as much as like a vata or a pitta they're more muscly. And so they could also then, if they're a little bit more vata than kapha, they might need a little bit more of that kind of thing of massage. So yes, it affects all of those different levels. Just trying to think of some other examples that might apply to a practitioner in the day to day.
What about like your microcurrent therapy that we're talking about? Does that carry an energy that
carries alpha? Everybody wants to be alpha.
Alpha.
So when you look at brain waves, there's alpha, beta, gamma, delta, theta.
Okay.
And in the old days, you'd have an EEG, electroencephalogram, and it would plot out those wave patterns through the brain.
Okay.
Now they're done with functional MRIs, and they're actually colored photos.
Oh, wow.
Yes. But the optimal, when you don't have pain, when you feel good, when you're happy, Everything's flowing like you'd like. You're in an alpha state.
And this is measurable?
Yes.
I can see that on a
And functional
pictorial
MRI.
graph?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's broken down
Can't
into
fake that.
different. No, you can't fake that. It is.
Wow.
It is what it is. Yeah. So they've done studies with using the alpha stim that then moves from a delta pattern or theta pattern into the alpha wave pattern.
I understand
after
alpha
therapy.
stim now.
Yeah.
I get it. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool.
So anyone that's out of balance, you can use that to help bring you back into balance by resetting that alpha waveform through the body, which is going to help with circulation, help with nerves. It goes through the limbic system, so it's going to help stabilize the parasympathetic, build up the parasympathetic. It's the area in the middle of the brain where all the fears and phobias and pains go to, and then the brain determines what to tell the body to do about it.
Okay, yeah. Let's stim the alpha in there.
Yeah, that's right. I felt that.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Wow. Cool. Interesting. And so what about other other medicinal practices, and how do those factor into an Ayurvedic strategy for our animals?
It's big on herbs.
Yeah.
Herbal teas.
Yeah.
I even have people make teas for their animals, and then they would mix it in. That would be the liquid that got mixed in with their food.
Yes.
You can use teas that way to help bring them into a balance.
Right.
So a lot of the powders are tea bags or powders that can be formulated that then are added with the liquid and then given to them.
Cool.
So definitely herbs is huge, and that is going to be your ground. It's the food, and then herbs, and then lifestyle, mindset, environment. What are you getting into that's causing problems? Look at that. What is your philosophy in life? Find out who you really are, and then work with your passion to help.
Yeah, you're talking about the herbs, and we keep coming back to balance. And when I talk to people about what cannabis medicine does and how that is applied, it's the most predominant function is bringing our bodies back to a place of homeostasis.
Right.
Modulating, not these direct actions of suppressive or increasing.
It's forcing.
It is a bringing back to balance whatever the body needs. So you use cannabis in your practice?
Yes,
right?
I actually use CBD Dog Health.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so is that
dogs and cats? Yeah, horses.
Yeah. So would you think that hemp has a dosha? Do plants have doshas?
Sure.
Does a cannabis plant have a dosha?
Yeah. Oh, they all do. So some of them are going to, be more of a hot.
Yeah.
And other ones are going to be cooling. So yes, they all have that. Some are going to be more moist in their nature.
Right.
Yeah. Everything has the frequencies, the wavelengths to make them fit in one area or another.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so fascinating to think of it, really, to zoom out in that way and to think about the relationship between the plant, the animal, how it is moving around in space.
And that's why some animals respond better to a CBD product. It's like, okay, my body appreciates this. It's an appreciation for that blending of that body's frequency at that time to the product's frequency at that time, that particular one that's selected. And then when they come together, it elevates. And so it allows that body almost like a chance to breathe from the association that it makes with that, as it helps to alleviate the inflammation or the stress. So, the pittas are going to have more of the inflammatory conditions. The vadas are going to be more fearful. They're going to have more of the anxiety and the fears. So when you're faced with a struggle, when you're faced with an enemy, there's three choices that the individual takes. There's the one that goes at it head on, says, you're not coming here, you're not. That's the pitta. Yeah, very good. Yes. Then you have the one that says, it ain't worth it. I'm just going to ignore it. Maybe another day. That's the kapha.
Got it.
And then you have the vata, which is the individual, the long distance runner. So how is the vata going to get away from something evil, bad?
Flight.
Exactly.
Run.
And they've built their body for it, their mind, they love it. Did you run? You runner?
I'm a swimmer.
You're a swimmer. Well, that's long distance, and that's the kind of, although you're in the moisture, you're in the kapha environment, but you're doing that. Yeah, but so if you enjoy that and you can go lap after lap after lap, to explain it to somebody who didn't like it at all, they
Right.
can't appreciate, why would you want to do that over and over and over?
Yeah.
But it invigorates you and you enjoy it. Well, so you got these Vata body types that are designed for this running, and their whole life is about getting away. So if something bad comes,
Oh my
that's
God,
what clicks in. We're
going
to go
there.
away.
Oh my God, we're going there.
So you can almost tell the dosha of the individual based on how they react to stress.
Wow.
So the Vata one is going to be the one that has more anxieties, fears, phobias. And you could take a pit bull that should be the Pitta, but if they have this fearfulness, like some of the pit bulls do, they become very fearful. They got too much Vata in them.
Okay.
Because their balance innately wouldn't be that way. They wouldn't want to be the fear monger. Now, they don't have to be totally in your face, but there's different degrees of all of that.
And so we would want to supplement them with something that is opposite.
That's right. You want to help to support that part that's, so you want to help support what they need in order to get them to their stable place.
Right. Bring up what is deficient.
Yes.
And cool down whatever is overexpressed.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Or an Avada situation too is like helping work the mind to not have the fear, or using the CBD to help support the part that gets into the fear too easily, to keep them more centered within their Vada-ness, so that they can learn that they can withstand a fear. They don't have to run so quick, so far away. They can back up 2 steps. Which is a little bit of escape, but they didn't have to just like disappear in life.
That's so interesting, and it really reminds me a lot of something we talk to people really regularly about, when they have dogs or cats that are very fearful, have chronic anxiety, and they want just something to fix it. They want to, how much CBD do I have to give my dog for him to not be afraid? And it's like, well, this is going to help in this way. However, it also has to be a practice of, what is the emotional life that needs to be addressed.
Yeah. What sets it off? Yeah. How often does it happen? And how long has it been going on? And then if you add this part now that you have with understanding the doshas, then you can go.
What your dog is or your cat is, and knowing where their inclinations are, and how to balance that with where they are at that time.
Right. Yeah.
Cool. It's a really great tool for just getting more information to then use the tools at hand.
That's right. Being able to explain, why is my dog like this? Why does it do that? Well, okay, let's look and see what dosha it is. Okay, now what's out of balance? Okay, now what can we use to bring it back to balance without setting it off in another area?
Right.
It's all of that.
I see. Yeah. So this really just opens up to better use all the tools that we have available.
That's right. Yeah, and it may be adding in acupuncture. India and China, they're not that far apart when you look at how far away we are from them. They've both been cultures for 5,000 plus years. So so you can add in different aspects of whatever your skill is to help with those balancing needs.
Cool.
Whether it's nutrition, the herbs, the therapies.
We have a question here. What kind of dogs would fall into a kapha category?
So the kaphas?
The kaphas.
Yep. Okay. So beagles, golden retrievers, Great Pyrenees, Saint Bernards, the Bernese Mountain Dog. Right. Yeah. So those would be some pugs, Cocker Spaniels. Those would be the kapha types. Rounded eyes, the bigger feet, the lumbering attitudes, body, the lovers, the forgivers,
nurturers, the mothers and fathers, the parent kind of energy.
Yeah, the ones that are good at that.
The good ones,
yeah, those are the kapha types. And the same way, if you look like a Persian cat, would be a kapha type cat. The horses would be like a Morgan. Could be that type of the warm bloods would be that type. Yes. Morgan could easily go into the Pitta category. A Pasofino would be a Pitta type of horse. So.
Wow, very interesting. There's so much to learn. It sounds like.
Makes it fun though, doesn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. And I because I had thought of it earlier as being sort of broad strokes. You know, when I first started learning about Ayurvedic medicine, it was like three categories for everyone. You know, that's a lot. But then when you start breaking down the layers beneath that, it's sort of how I learned about astrology.
Oh, cool.
Like that to categorize everybody into 12 different signs. I'm like, well, I don't feel like that all the time. But then to understand that that's just one piece of many that all are interacting at once, you kind of understand a little better how you can get a full picture.
Yep, that's a very good analogy.
Seems similar.
Yep.
Cool. Yeah. All right. Well, I think that that is our time. Thank you so much for
Thanks for having me.
And,
this was a pleasure.
So tell everybody how we can find you.
Okay.
DrAvaFrick.com.
Just Ava Frick. AvaFrick.com would be a website. Yeah, you can easily go to. Yeah, that pretty much, my website has everything.
Fantastic.
So how to contact me, phone, email,
and
I'll do it all there.
You've got quizzes on there so people can figure out.
They can use for Doshas. Yeah, I have a big nutritional section that explains for clients a little bit about Ayurveda and how you can utilize that in feeding programs. Yeah, it's on the site there. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you everybody for joining us. We will be back tomorrow with another 3 talks with some really fantastic vets. Thank you for joining us. Bye.
Bye.